time is gone 11 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock, and it's a very good evening to you. Welcome to it. This is our special broadcast, and it's coming to you live from our studios here in Hatfield in Pretoria. We're going to be with you for the next coming hour. It is now 12 after 6, and my name is Siyabulela. So glad to be holding your hand all the way up until then. It's Let's Talk Justice, Live Your Rights show, season number 5, and this is episode 17. We're pretty excited about what we're going to be talking about this evening. We're talking about the role of behavior change in men and boys in the fight against the gender-based violence and femicide, the GBVF as you know it. And my name is Siyabulela. Christopher Saba Peli Matebele Tabala Robalo and Amtili Mokasunyarna Yabushum Yalono Tabella Luena Il Kamgana now Laka Iliabushupa Gabulisha Leba Homana Barnaba Lumor Bajwa from the government, Bajwa from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Tomatomo walking around Kitaki, introducer Moena, Mr. Max Mpuzana coming from the DOJ&CD. It's a very good evening to you, Max. Just pull that microphone towards you, really. There we go.
Good evening, my brother Karabo. Good evening to the listeners.
Right, that's Dr. Max Mpuzana, whom we're going to be engaging this evening. And we also got Mr. Javu, Baloyi, spokesperson from the Commission for Gender Equality. Brachavas.
Good evening, Karabo, and good evening to the wonderful listeners.
Thank you so much for that. And we're waiting Mr. Siyabulela, Gentile. Am I right?
Yeah, he's coming up.
No, I nearly said Gentile, really. You need to be very careful when you're on air or something. Ask rather. You see, there he is walking in, and no, it's not him. All right, okay, now he's going to be walking in shortly. So we're looking forward to that. Now, I thought you were in Dr. Gentile there. No, don't worry about it. So we're going to be talking about that, the role of behavior change in men and boys in the fight against gender-based violence this evening, gentlemen. 0800-142-446, 0800-142-446. That's our telephone line if you need to be in touch with us. We'd really be excited if you engage with us on the subject, especially men. I'm not cutting ladies out. Ladies, I want you to call in, because from you we can get advice as well, but I would really like to encourage men to be part of this conversation for this evening. Let's firstly talk about gender-based violence. What are we talking about when we're touching on the issue of gender-based violence? Maybe Max, let's start with you there. Okay, maybe let's start with you, Baloyi. Gender-based violence, what is it and how rife is it in South Africa?
When we talk about gender-based violence, we're talking about the physical, the emotional, the psychological abuse that happen. It could be sexual. More especially of late, we got to understand there's more the prevalence of emotional abuse. It's more the bullying, the harassment, the intimidation, both in the home and the workplace. It's very rife. It's very prevalent. We are rated number 1. Statistically, every year the numbers are going high. As much as we're saying, Statistics South Africa is saying, and the SAPS is saying the numbers are going down. We don't believe that as a Commission for Gender Equality, and most people don't buy into that. The reason being is that there are a lot of people in the far-flung areas, in the rural areas of KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Eastern Cape, where they can't even go and report these cases. So that is a worry. However, we were happy because the President of the Republic has taken charge on this issue to deal and arrest the scourge of gender-based violence, and also committing his office political support, and also committing funds. For the first time it has happened ever since we have been fighting against gender-based violence. We have got campaigns like we're doing now, but it was not enough without the necessary resources. Now we're no longer working in silos. Remember, Justice has got Max will talk on it, has got a special program on Under the Trees. It's always where we go as a commission, we caught on that Under the Trees, because it's a very special project that is targeting on us men. Because the moment that we know we remove ourselves as an individual to say, I can't take collective responsibility, I didn't do that, then we're defeating the purpose of Under the Tree, because it's us men we need to talk in order to end the scourge of gender-based violence.
We're trying to try all of these avenues in terms of initiating behavior change in men and boys, and I'm very excited to be hearing about this Under the Tree. And I'll be totally honest with you, Max, is the first time I'm hearing about it. Please tell us more about that. What is this initiative that we're talking about?
This initiative is premised on the most extreme cases of violence targeted at women that have happened in our country recently. I don't know if you remember, on the 13th of September 2018,
I think it was.
No, it's 2019 actually.
2019.
This year. The President wrote to the Speaker of Parliament and requested a joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament. And as you know, a joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament is not a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
It's only held under very special circumstances.
Right.
So, because of the crisis, and that's what the President, that's how the President described it.
Yes, as a
He
crisis. Yes.
said gender-based violence has reached crisis proportions.
My goodness.
And then he threw the ball squarely on the Court of Men. He said we should actually stop calling it gender-based violence. We must start calling it male-perpetrated attacks against women.
Right.
And then he said all the campaigns that we implement going forward have to necessarily target at men, because the men are the perpetrators of violence. I think you know that in the year 1998 we adopted the 16 days as government.
Right.
And in 2002 we added the children component because of these beastly attacks on children as well.
Yes.
Now, ever since then, we have been telling women to carry a whistle, to carry a pepper spray, to avoid dark spaces, and so on. So our targets were at women, telling them to break the silence and so on. So now we are coming up with a new campaign that brings men together to talk about this issue, because it is men who perpetrate these attacks. It is men who have the power to stop them.
Right.
And we call them under the trees because we are basing them on a very familiar concept for all African people, which is when there's a crisis in a village, the king or the chief or the induna of that specific area will call all men together under the tree to discuss whatever the issue is that is plaguing the community. So in this instance, we are going to be under many trees across the country,
right,
discussing this issue with men. But we are not stopping at men, we are also focusing at boys, because we feel that this toxicity or this attitude that women as objects to be violated are transferred from us as older men into younger boys. So we need to intervene. In Sesotho we say le ojwa le salimate. So we want to intervene at that level.
Right. 0800 142 446 0800 142 446. We're talking about the role of behavior change in men and boys, especially when it comes to the fight against the gender-based violence and femicide. And talking to us this evening, you've just heard now from Mr. Mpuzana, coming from the DOJ&CD, Mr. Javu Baloyi, spokesperson for Commission for Gender Equality, and somebody that I've introduced you to, though he was not here, is Mr. Siyabulela, Jentile. He's coming from Not In My Name. He's just joined us now. Thank you so much for joining us, Bab Siyabulela. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're coming from Not In My Name.
Correct.
And this is a movement that's trying to bring about change, especially now that we're talking about behavior change in men and boys. Tell us about the role that you're playing.
Yeah, so thank you so much again for this opportunity. So the role that we're trying to play, and just without repeating what has already been said,
right,
is that we need to move away from focusing all our interventions and energy on victims and victims to be, or potential victims. Rather, we need to move our focus and interventions more into potential perpetrators and perpetrators, which are mostly men.
And why is that? This is very interesting that you say the shift from victims to perpetrators. It might be obvious to some, but there has been a lot of focus on victims. So why the need to shift that? Is there something in particular that...
So obviously women don't rape themselves.
Of course.
They don't kill themselves.
Yeah.
Femicide is perpetrated by men. rape in most instances, abuse in most instances, and we're not shying away from the fact that it's gender-based violence, which means it goes both ways. But statistics tell us that, that in most cases, in instances, it's been men who have been perpetrating against females. So when you are shifting your interventions to the perpetrators or the potential perpetrators, you are being proactive as opposed to being reactive.
Right.
Instead of you investing your energy on assisting victims, you are somehow making sure that it doesn't get to a point whereby there is a victim by dealing with the perpetrator or the potential perpetrator. So I think that is where our energy and our interventions should be moving as a country, to say that. And I like the concept of under the tree dialogues, to say to these young boys that, everything that you have been taught, everything that you have been socialized into believing that is the correct way of living, of doing things, you need to unlearn, because we cannot continue as a country that that is actually normalized this behavior that is actually abnormal and it's wrong, which should be condemned by all means necessary.
0800 142 446 karata go go wena mthilejo na wena o di bona byang taba tsa botšo bja logono, as we discuss issues that's got to do with gender-based violence and that this whole shift from victims to perpetrators. I think we the step in the right direction, really, and the whole focus on men and boys in the right direction as well. Max, you've just explained now the two categories, men and boys. It's understandable. Men, older men, they can think for themselves, they can make decisions by themselves. Boys can't. How do you think we should educate our boys? Where does it start? Is it something that you're looking into introducing in schools? Are you doing it in playgrounds when these boys ball? How are you going to go about with these boys in terms of educating them? Maybe Brajabu, let's start with you.
One of the thank you for that question. One of the things that we think we have as a country, we have missed a bigger opportunity is through life orientation.
Life orientation, you mean the subject at
the school?
Yes.
Because every child goes to school. We assume 90% of the kids, or 99.9, go to school at a young age.
Right.
Let's forget about the dropping out.
Okay.
There's that course whereby now there's a whole about sex education. That's where we're supposed to teach them about the values of this. We get people like Not In My Name, train the trainers, get these teachers, because some of them, they don't say anything to them because they don't have the content. We have got the content which we can supply them from the Commission for Gender Equality, from the Justice Department. Some of them, some of the educators might not even know the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Yeah. And we assume that they know because they're there in charge. You will be amazed, when you ask people questions, they don't even answer. They know what's going on with gender-based violence. That's what some idiots think of stepping people. I'm sorry to use the language. Stepping a person wanting to gain the limelight during 16 days of activism. Yes. During Women's Month, people do the same, because that mentality, that we need to have psychosocial counseling. We need to have clinical psychology. We've got lots of social workers that can get involved within the education system and deal with these issues. Secondly, we have got the circumcision schools. Some of us we're a product of the circumcision school. Yeah. What are the lessons that are being learned there, except being insulting, objectifying women and demeaning them? We can get experts who might have gone there, not rubbish the culture, but say, let's use this cultural avenue in order to empower these kids. Let them unlearn some of the things that they had, what is being a man. Because some of them, even today, you can't even describe. Some of them, you ask you, what makes you a man? Someone will tell you that, now at home, it's my it's not that. Yeah, it's more than that. That's why at times, Mpuzana will say, I wish he was here. He will say most of these people you see at Javu, they're just sperm donors. They're not men enough.
Yeah.
Because a real man will also try to teach a child that learn what wrong things and be there and talk. I'm glad the article's coming that, us black men in particular, we are coming all right when it's coming to the bonding with our own kids and a boy child, and then we're doing it in the right way. And we're grateful. Also, we need to have a stronger civil society. As much as, at times we might have differences here and there, but we need to make sure that civil society work with us and we support them because they support our work.
Yeah. Right, you sir?
I agree with everything that Javu has said. I
just said it so passionately. You have to agree with that.
Now, all I want to add is that, look, I would believe that action is informed by attitude.
Yes.
So if your attitude is that if you buy me a bottle of Savannah, you must take me home, that attitude will inform how you act against me when I don't want to go home with you. So we believe that changing the attitudes of boys in terms of respecting women when they are still young will inform how they will act under those situations. The other thing that we believe we should do is, in most cases, fathers are to be feared. Even when you are out and when when your mother is disciplining, the wife is disciplining the children, she will always say, "Oh, you don't listen to me. Your father is coming." And when he comes here with a frown. He doesn't talk to anyone in the house except to back instructions here and there.
Yeah.
Now we hope that these dialogues that we're having, because we are forcing young boys and men into the same space, will be catalytic in the sense that they will introduce that aspect of men talking to young boys about how to be responsible men. So we're hoping that through that dialogue, when we leave, we will leave that legacy of men and boys starting to talk about how to be responsible citizens in the country, including how to treat and respect women. So we're hoping to change attitudes from that perspective.
0800 142 446. I'm going to need those phone calls coming in very, very quickly. Ace, 0800 142 446. That's the number to dial. It's a toll-free number if you're going to be calling from a landline. If you're calling from a cell phone, we'll take your details down and we'll call you back in that regard. I believe I've got a call on the line. It's a very good evening to you, caller. Who am I speaking to? Moram Karas, Ujani. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 16 days. It's in the Monday, 25 November, Mosne.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's in Bango. It's I don't think that year.
Kanja Mkhenaz, Kalogu is a yeah.
The problem is money is continue. Even my because all of them are paying. I remember till the end of the world.
Okay. Yeah. Ndabulela ndithetha nobani? Ndabulela ke Mhlekazi.
Yeah.
0800. Yeah. All right.
Ibezekayo ezinto zithina sezithathe kaningi mazithi ngedate ethile inyanga yento ethile singathi from January to December okusezintweni ukuthi akubetha abafazi nabantwana and ndathi le radio yakho uthi izibonele le imamela ukini bese kukhutshwa amadoda ahambe ipatrola door to door ubuze ba nisenjani apha endlini njengalamthetho yokuqala we-apartheid kwakuphulwa apartheid ubuze abantu ba nihlale bangapha endlini uba kufike umfazi endlini ne-blue eye indoda izamxola ibetheza bene-blue eye.
Yeah.
Yes, ngoba zonke neziqhubekayo asizihoyi thina madoda kuba kwixesha yazi enye into esimotional sithi sifune into ezirongo kodadomkhulu baberongo kodadomkhulu thina funeka sikhaba umuntu abe nabafazi abathathu uzikhona into yokufinyeza kwabafazi uthathe umntana una-15 years okwendisela kwindoda ena-48 years into lento leyo.
Okay, Dabulela Mhlekazi, I really appreciate your call. Let's move on to the next caller. We've got Stembiso on the line. Stembiso on the line. Good evening to you, Stembiso.
Good evening, sir. How do you do?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for calling.
Look, man, I hear we talking about gender-based violence, and that the focus is now being shifted from everything else to the perpetrators, right? And from my understanding right now, you're saying the perpetrators are men. My question is that we've got men that are abused out there. You've got men that suffer from domestic violence as well, and so forth and so forth.
Right.
When are we now going to start focusing on those men? As much as they are a minority, at the end of the day, they also have issues that they have to deal with. You know, when are we now going to start saying that, but it is not only women and children that are now suffering from domestic violence. We also have men that that are victims of domestic violence. We have men that are suffering under this whole thing. I mean, like, look at now, we just started with the 16 days of activism, but men are still not included. When are we now going to incorporate those minorities, as much as they are a minority, when are we now going to incorporate those men that are now suffering from domestic violence and so forth, and now trying to change the attitude of everyone else around us, rather than focusing on the attitude of men and boys? You know, like the other day I was just reading a story of a woman that poured water on her husband due to some insecurities and so forth. You know, those are some of the things that are busy happening out there. The man was poured with boiling water, but no one is saying anything about such things. When are we going to start looking at men as victims as well? I understand that, yes, we have an issue in terms of women being violated and children and so forth, but we also have men out there that are lacking a voice. When are we now going to give those men a voice?
Thank you so much, Stembiso. I really appreciate your call. Let's move over to Newo. Newo is on the line. Good evening to you, Newo.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I'm good, and you, sir?
Yes, I'm fine.
Go for it.
Yeah, it is so painful to hear such news about a man, you see.
Yeah.
Maybe a long time ago, a man was a savior, and then a man was a protector and a husband, you see. But today, many have changed, you see, and it is so painful to see what is happening, and more especially in our country, around the world, whereby we see a man change and men committing other things that are not lawful, you see.
Right.
So it's so sad, you know.
All right. So that's your comment. Have you got a question or anything else?
Yes, I think the government must implement more campaigns, you see, and then we must teach our young girls. There must be programs. I don't know how, but I think our government can bring more information to the nation, and then we as men, we must support this, and then so that other men can see that this is wrong, and then so that we can move forward as a nation, you see.
Thank you so much. This is Neo calling us. Really appreciate your call about Neo. 26 minutes before 7 o'clock, 0800 142 446. I think at this point in time, let me just do a quick announcement, really. We had a scheduled a program that was to happen between 8 and 20 to 10, right? So it was going to run between 8 o'clock until 9 o'clock. We were going to have a break of 10 minutes and then come back into the program again and run up until almost 9:45. I've been told that program has been cancelled. That was the program by President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was going to join the Power FM guys on the program called The Chairman's Conversation. All right, you probably know that if you, especially in Gauteng, listening to Power FM. A couple of radio stations were scheduled to take that program this evening. I just want to let you know that that program is not going to happen anymore. That program has been cancelled, and we really appreciate your being ready to take up that program, but unfortunately we had moved it. The president has issued a statement that the president is not going to be able to continue with that commitment anymore. Right, let's go into the questions quickly. Stem wants to find out, so when are we going to look at men as victims? And I think you've touched on it, Sia, briefly, but Bo, happy this question looks like it's a concern, really. And I'll be honest with you, we spoke about GBV here on this platform before, and about 2 callers called in, but no, we understand, but men are also victims. What's your response to that?
And I always warn against this, that when we talk gender-based violence, as I said earlier, it's gender, which means gender does not refer to females only. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
And I always warn against whataboutism. Every time when we want to address the issue of women being killed, women being raped, or violence that is perpetuated against women, then we want to bring in the issue of what about men?
Yeah.
Whereas we can have both conversations. We always in our spaces in these discussions similar to the ones we want to have the imbizo, such as under the tree dialogues. Those are the spaces for men to come out and speak. But experience has shown us that most men, do not want to be a part of these things, and these are the platforms that are created for men to come out and speak. And look, we understand that men go to police station, they report, they get laughed at and things like that, but that does not mean now as a man you must still come out and speak. And we've had men coming out and saying that I've been abused. We've assisted some of them we've obviously referred it to more professionals and so on and so forth. But we are looking at men as victims. We are talking to men as victims. That's why we have men's imbizos. We have counseling sessions for men. There are men who are, who are able to come out and say that I'm vulnerable, I'm at my weakest, and that's not something that should be frowned upon. It should be allowed for men to cry. And in our meeting spaces, the conversations that we are having as men are often toxic and sejutana as machit and this and this, and then we come out and say, but you are not looking at us as victims. But when the platforms are provided for you, you come out with statements such as Indota Ekali. But it is not entirely true that those of us who are in the gender activism space are looking away on issues of men. In fact, we have been discussing more issues of men than the ladies, actually.
All right. Brahmax, you spoke about under the trees, right? And Neil says, any considerations of bringing girls to that type of setup? Because he speaks about what are we doing to teach our young girls, right? So that education phase. Would you consider bringing girls and women perhaps into that space?
Perhaps let me start by adding to what Ubutsia said,
right,
and contextualize why we have 16 days of activism as we have it. I just forgot whether it's the Mirabel sisters in South America, visit Brazil, who were abducted and killed during this time, sometime in the early 90s. And then government, the UN introduced the 16 days of peace, focusing on peace in the family, the protection of women against violence. Now, it's not a South African campaign. All we did as South Africa is to adopt it because we have those problems.
Right.
And now, let me further agree with Putsia. It's really defeating us as people when we raise a problem about one sector of the population, and then people come up and say, but we also have other problems. And when you put the two problems on the same scale, you will find that the abuse of women far outweighs and we're not trying to minimize the abuse of men.
No.
But we're saying that now that we're focusing on this gauge, just 4 days ago, a young lady who was supposed to be finishing an N6 at the Capricorn TVET in Limpopo was sleeping in a room. A man jumps into a window, allegedly rapes her, stabs her 52 times to death.
This is the Ramabulana
lady.
Yeah.
Now I'm saying, how does a man come out and say, how about us under these circumstances? Let us understand the scale of the abuse of women.
Let us be sensitive.
Let's be sensitive as well. There's nothing that stops him and other men coming together, and maybe in March or in another time, let's not try to defile the 16 days of activism. It's focused at women and children. Let's focus on that as a country and try to find solutions along those lines.
It pains me
It does.
It pains me the most when we're trying to do something so noble, so wonderful in the country, educate Ugogo and Dlamini in the rural areas in the Far KwaZulu-Natal about your rights, sensitize about the rights, about abuse that happens, about some of the things that happen, and then you know what? I wrote a statement with tears yesterday when we issued it, and I made a mistake, a typo in the statement on Precious Ramabulani. Asking myself, how do you go to extent of stabbing someone 52 times, and yet you call yourself a man? And when you do it once, you continue until it's 52 times, and then you leave here to die. Then you have got men who at times, because we want to claim our hegemony, our patriarchal mindset, to say, what about us? It is not about men now. It is about the violence that is perpetrated against women by us. It includes me, Javu, Baloyi from the Commission for Gender Equality, and my colleagues who are sitting here, that, something is happening. We are not saying that we don't talk about men. There's a cases in Venda where a man has been beaten by a woman, his own wife has gone back to stay with his family, and I said that man is my hero. And we're helping that man to reclaim his own dignity by doing certain things. The other men that were assisting, they're coming to the commission silently to say, look, it's happening to us, this is how it's happening. But coming to a platform like this to say, what about us when Precious is lying in a morgue now because of a man who wears pants, who breathes, who does everything like me, who couldn't zip it allegedly, attack this beautiful mind, a young girl from a family which poverty stricken, and we come to this platform. It is not fair, guys. Let us think beyond our small cocoon to say, what are we doing? What role are we doing to shape society?
All right. You want to come into it?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something quickly.
Go for it.
I think where we need to start is that we need to admit, and that is the conversation that most men don't want to have, that we are privileged. And every time when I talk about this, we always compare the issues of gender equality with the issues of race. The same way we say white people don't want to let go of privilege, the same way that men don't want to let go of male privilege. So this system that is termed patriarchy, it privileges us in a sense that it puts us men on top of the social hierarchy, and by virtue of being female and not being born without a penis, you are disadvantaged. Same way as being born in South Africa, being born white, is the same way as being born male. It puts you forward, it puts you at a point of an advantage. So until as men we start to agree that, you know what, guys, this privilege or being men puts us at an advantage, then I think that is where this whole thing starts. When the discussion comes into spotlight about women being killed, then you won't be asking questions like, what about us? I mean, by being a man, you can walk around at night, you know that the only thing that you're worrying about is being mugged or your cell phone being taken. But a lady, she thinks about being raped. She thinks about, someone can kill me now and do all these things. So I think, as you said, we need to be sensitive. We need to, to acknowledge the power that comes with being male and the privileges. And I think if we start there, then we would have that sensitization that we all need.
And just to add, Butkarabo, because earlier you asked me a direct question about why are we not including women or young girls in this particular conversation?
Yes.
As you would know, and I'm not trying to politic here.
Yeah.
Of course. There is this SLC Take a Girl Child to Work program. There are a number of other programs that focus on the girl child. So our suspicion is boys are left to their own devices.
Yeah.
And that's why we may be having some of these problems in the society. So now, we are not saying those that focus on women must stop or young girls must stop. All we are saying is, if we can be allowed to try and, regain this humanity among young boys, have conversations with men in like men to men. Why do you do this, daughter? With me as a man asking another man, I think it will take us forward.
Yeah. Right. 0800 142 446. Let's take Jan from Mafikeng. Jan Mafikeng. Okay, Jan Mafikeng. Okay, now I thought maybe. All right, so Jan is not there. All right, we're going to go to the next caller, and this is. Okay, are we going back to the next caller? All right, Miriam. Okay, Jan again. Ngaphi bokuphi kanti Mhlonishwa? Ngiyakhumbula ke, I think the last time we were doing that GBV program uke washaya wakhuluma nathi.
Yes, now
Khuluma nami Mhlonishwa.
It pains me
to
hear men talking like that, but we to go studio, not knowing what reba kwako di placing kwako nkazeche ba kwako di farming kwako di villages, how do they suffer in the hands of women? And yet we're not that privilege to come to the radio and talk the way we talk.
Okay, all right.
Firstly, let's start here. And then when we get into this thing of GBV, yes, we work in gender-based violence.
Yeah.
Now, as when we are saying gender-based violence, start saying stop abuse against men, women, and children.
All right, but Jan, okay, no, Jan, what you're saying. But the reason our focus is here, I'm answer this question because the gentlemen have actually put it this evening. The reason why our focus more is because of the skyrocketing figures that we're seeing. So the cases reported and unreported.
Why? Let's look back and say, right, give one the other day, 16 days of activism in only 20 years, and it's not bearing any fruit.
Okay.
Why?
Okay, let me.
There are so many. The committee
yes, sir.
But they are not getting it right for the past 20 years. Even now, can over 16 days, another brutality within that 16 days of activism. Why can't we stand back and say, what is going on? And like, we are trying to fix this thing. We have gone for 20 years. It is because we are not getting it right. We are not sending the correct message.
But what do you think is the problem, Jan? What do you think the problem is? Because you're asking a correct answer, or why?
Men are left behind. Men are abused. Naturally, men don't talk. You know, I so wished that at some point I will go and interview. Remember that monster?
Yes.
You know, I followed up that story of that gentleman, that white man from Bloemfontein, allocated a Petersburg. Or tell me, before I'm one of the victims. So I wanted to go to that gentleman and ask him, what prompted you not to kill this woman and kill this innocent boy? What made you to do that? What was that in within you? And the you see, as when men now are polaya, he has done all what he could, and put yourself into his shoes. Because it hasn't happened to you.
All right.
And then when it can come to you, you can understand it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Kupafela just hit it straight on the point.
Okay. Let us include men. Let's say gender-based violence, stop abuse against men, women, and children. We started there. And then, but about the organization, let them not talk the government language. Let them talk about our language. That all nobody placing we see them. Our organization here in Africa is meant for me. We see those names. They are abused. heavily, and like I said, I am one of them, but I survived.
Thank you so much.
I'm happy about that.
Thank you so much, Brian. We'll respond to that, or would you like to engage Jan while he's on the line?
Yeah.
Okay, Jan, just hold the line. I'll tell you what, have you got Jan's number? The ace. Okay, Jan, put the phone down. We'll call you back. I want to take Miriam for now, and then once Miriam is on air, I think my producer will call you back, Jan. Just want to clear those telephone lines quickly, and then we can engage Jan. Let's just hear what Miriam has got to say now. Miriam?
Hello.
Hi, Miriam. How are you doing?
Ngiyapila
siswam. Khuluma nami.
Okay. Mina comment ne
okay.
Question.
All right.
Ngithi mina education ne kumele iqale emakhaya.
Okay.
Kubatali bethu. Ngiyabona.
Yeah.
Ngoba sometimes uthola ukuthi mina ngihlala nendoda yami iyang abuse. Ngiyafika la ekhaya ngiyareporta ngiyabatshela ukuthi mina le kwenzakalani. Bangitshela ukuthi ayibeketela man. Emendeni kuyabeketela. Ngiphinde ngibuyele futhi ngiyele emuva. And lo muntu nakathi abuse, ukabuse phambi kwabantwana. Nalabantwana labakhona la ekhaya labafana. Basina bakhula bakhulela ku-abusive, yabona ikhaya le-abusive. Nabo lento iyachubeka i-carry on. Until lo muntu aze angibulale sengikhani sebafuna kusukuma bathathe action. Yabona. Bathi ngibuyile ngareport, bathi buyela. Ngiyabeketela. In fact, uyalapha ekhaya lakhe uyabeketela. Ngiyabonga.
Ngiyabonga sisam. We're going to talk about that as well. You know what the role that our parents are playing in terms of we say the old education system here. If you want the brides, normally it happens there, right there. That's a which really was pay like really we are qua. Yeah, all fitla quarnya or don't really or we'll talk about that now shortly. All right, is Jan back on the line? Okay, all right, let's take a Siri and then we're going to get Jan back on the line quickly. We just want to engage him on his points. Siri, good evening to you. Thank you so much for calling.
Bro, how are you?
Shapuze Dama, bro.
I'm fine, man. Good evening to Mr. Mpuzana and Mr. Baloyi there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, my brother. I want to touch on something. Let's talk behavioral change in men and boys. No? Because now I'm a bit worried because I can hear that the conversation is a bit changing. Here is what is happening. My suggestion, I think this scourge of the gender-based violence and femicide related to the abuse of women, it has to be addressed at a very early age. So my suggestion is this. How about we say maybe in primary school and high school, then also, I know it's going to be a bit sensitive, but I'm going to say it, even good initiation schools. This, us as men and boys talk about this issue, make sure that we educate each other that, guys, because now you are on this stage, your duty is to take care, your duty is to protect, and we can also add providing, not abusing at a very, very, very young age, so that when they grow up, they grow with that feeling of the love that they're supposed to give to the women specifically. And I'm sure if that happens, the other side will receive and give back. I don't know if I make sense.
Thank you so much, Asiri. I think you do. You are making definite sense. I really appreciate your input. Jan is back on the line. Let's engage Jan quickly. We're looking at the time as well. Let's try to get to the point. Jan, you're back on the line. Thank you so much for that.
I'm back on the line.
Thank you so much, sir. Just a bit of engagement from our side. Here's Max to speak to you quickly.
Let me first start by saying I acknowledge your pain, my brother. I'm sorry that the abuse has happened to you. And the points that you are raising about the abuse of men being taken seriously are important matters. And we should not focus on them only during 16 days. We should focus on them throughout the year. But our issue with you, my brother, is that this is an international campaign. It's focused on the question of abuse of women. And because you are feeling pain, and you understand and you see the pain of other men, you now want to jump in and commandeer, take over this space that is meant only for women. So we are saying, instead of focusing on 16 days, and because government is now looking at a 365-day program, let's find other times, other periods. Because now you seem as if you refuse us as government to engage on the issue of abuse of women, and that's not what you are doing. You are saying men have a problem too. So I'm just saying that let's just find the time to separate the issues. If you can just bear with us for the 16 days, allow us to deal with women abuse, and then we will find other time. And I'm sure throughout the year, Abu Karabo, you can bear us out. We discuss GBV.
Yeah.
We will find the time to engage on other issues. Let's just not mix issues up, because you are going into that whataboutism that Sia was talking about. When we talk about women crying, women being killed, you say, what about men? You sound insensitive, my brother. So I'm just saying that let's find creative ways of dealing with that problem. And then the people that we were talking about in the farms, these under the tree dialogues that were rolling out across the country, we'll go to the farms, we'll go throughout the country. There's no part of the country where we will not reach, and we invite you to be part of them, to raise these issues that you are concerned about, so that we find solutions to situations where people react in a manner that harms women and so on. Thanks, my brother.
All right. May I just quickly say, just for a minute? Listen, I understand and really support you. Now, when we get to address our issues as men, we've got a men's month, July. So ever, men's July has been talked about one man. There has never been all of us men.
Which one man is that you're talking about?
Nelson Mandela.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Ryan, it's me again, man. I just want to check, what are you doing in the space where you are?
I'm trying to workshop Basimanyana.
Okay.
I'm saying, can't we take a step back and say, but where we are getting it wrong? Why are we getting it wrong? Because this thing has been going on not in the 365 days. I guess every 16 days of activism. So, but are either into an ongoing and aiming a long-lasting solution.
Right.
And when you buy a lady a savannah, you don't own her. How much is 100,000? You don't own her. How much is you don't own her. We are trying now to educate guys, and then when they are saying their happiness starts with them, also yourself, your happiness starts with you, young man.
All right. Okay.
We are fighting there.
All right. Thank you so much, Prajan. I think up until that far, we've got the gist. Would you like to jump in very quickly?
Brian, sorry about what you went through. Because of the discussion, it's not about what you are talking to the converted on the subject matter that you're not talking about. Let's partner with you from the Commission for Gender Equality in the Northwest Province. We'll leave you our numbers here. I'll get your numbers here so that we can take this offline and see what we can do with your program. But in the interim, allow us space and time and emotions and everything that we got to deal with the issues of gender-based violence against women and children during 16 days. We're doing 365 days. That's why the commission, we don't do a girl child. We take both a girl child and a boy child. So we'll talk after this, Brian. And I thank you, and I'm sorry for your head.
Thank you so much, Jan, for that interaction. I think we're going to take one, maybe let's make it one more caller. Let's just take one last caller, and we're going to engage that caller quickly. But what about a serious comment? Siri came in there, and he also had a comment with regards to what we're talking about. Okay.
That's what I started with.
Yes.
We need some behaviors you can unlearn them. the circumcision schools, the schools, what are we teaching them in the curriculum? We can get these young kids not only young kids, some of these people who are going to circumcision school, they go there because of some of the songs that are being sung there, and they enjoy those songs there. And we can remove that mentality and say you can instill positive attitude and positive behavioral pattern. And Siri was spot on, and if we can do that, I'm telling you, Karabo, half of the battle can go on.
All right, Bro Max.
No, we are together with Siri on this thing, and we believe that that's part of what the Under the Tree Dialogues are seeking to do. We're trying to find young men in their localities, engage them on this thing, dissuade them from all of those behaviors that he was talking about that are bad, where people feel they own a person because they give the person 20 rand and they feel, and we just want to engage with them, educate them, and change their attitudes along those lines. So he's 100% spot on those issues.
Let's take in Dumiso. Dumiso on the line, and Dumiso, I believe you're on line 1. Good evening to you, Dumiso. Siyaphila kunjani baba?
Yebo, ukhuluma noMiso from personal respect.
Ngiyabonga mfundisi.
Baba, yeah, into engasiza la to avoid those things. I think kuqala kwakunalento le kwakhona amakhosi during the apartheid era, and let us say during the apartheid era. Yeah, there was something that you call all the guys babehlala ndawonye bafundiswe uthi uma umfana uba kanjani and umfana ufuna wenzeni, yabona. So now njengoba sekukhona ama rights manje abantu sebegcwele all over and do other drugs, yabona. Mhlambe maybe amakhosi amakhosi rani kumazwe mhlambe ngasekubuyiswe le nto akudala kakuthumbi kuhlale phasi kuxoxe kukhulunywe ngobudodo ukuthi, and futhi into ebuye accuse ukuthi sakhulu ukuthi indoda ekhaya noma unama issues awukwazi uku-address wanika abantu ukuthi nene ukwazi ukusobha uhlala naleyo nto ngaphakathi kuwena. Iyona lento ebuyisibulale thina amadoda uma uhlukumezeka awukwazi ukusho, uyayigcina nje into ikuwe kanti igcina eyenza leyo nto igcina yenza i-anger, yabona. Lento encane igcina isicasula ngenxa yokuthi thina sakhulu ukuthi nje into yakho indoda ayikhali ifela ngaphakathi nama issues akho wafela ngaphakathi igcine into isiqhubisa isiyibhomisa inkulu, yayibona lona.
Ngiyayizwa mfowethu.
Yeah, mhlambe mfethu maybe now khona mina ngasedile futhi even those to out get in amament counseling something like that, mhlambe ngasiza lokho to ukuthi kusifake siqhubekele phambili nathi ukuthi mhlambe leyo mentality yakudala naloko futhi naloko-ke ukuthi nene mhlambe isizwe nesizwe mhlambe sibuyele back to indini ukuthi ngokuqala kwakhona umuntu ukuthi umuntu nayensizwa nani uhambe kuthiwa abafana bahlangana ndawonye ba-train ukuthi how can you be a man, ukuthi boyimene ubhizinani dila nani ukuthi, yabona. So mhlambe ngasebuye lezo zinto mhlambe ngasiza kakhulu singasebenza kakhulu ngama-rights and democracy.
Right. Gentlemen, your reflections on what the caller has said here? Okay. All right, let's
Dumiso, what you are saying is exactly what we are doing as government right now.
Yeah.
Because sivusa lento, that's why sithi lento le isiyenzayo ifana nembizo yamadoda nabafana. So what we are trying to do as government, we are trying to get amakhosi involved, because abantu angithi bakhonza emakhosini. Sifuna futhi abafundisi to be involved, because most men bayasonta, they go to church. We want all of these aspects. We want organizations like organizations Kaputsiala, Not in My Name, organizations like Kulumandota, organizations like Adapt, institutions like my brother Javu's Commission on Gender Equality to be involved, where we sit down with men, Sibuzan with Kwanagalepi, where did we go wrong as men, and find solutions. So we are going back. Actually, what we are talking about is exactly what we are trying to do now as government. It's just that it's different because it's coming from a government point of view, but it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's on
yeah. Yes. Then futhi even though emalokishini ke mhlambe ngaba kube khona nendlela futhi engenza ngayo. And futhi even though nakhona futhi an other side singabheki ngaphandle sibheka ama-men only, but nabantu besifazane ba violence please really.
All right. All right, thank you so much, Ndumiso. On the line, it's 5 minutes after the hour, 7 o'clock. I think, gentlemen, we need more time to actually discuss about this. Or, Sia, is there anything that you offer, Paula? I so wanted to use that phrase. Meaning meal.
No, I think Paul is I think what is important. One, we need to be sensitive to this issue. Secondly, let us just try to be part of the solution for once. As I said earlier, in Dabaga, what aboutism I sebenzeli, and let me just share this quickly. We did an ad campaign with Cosmopolitan recently.
Right.
It's all over. It's online. So what we're doing is that we're asking men question to say, how does it feel to be a woman for a day? And then we did a few shots with a few celebrities, Abu Kagiso Rabada, Abu Nestisina. So we were being harassed by this lady throughout the day, and I think I spent about an hour doing that. But the way I felt, it was though this thing was real, and I was just acting, But and then for me, that said, imagine what women go through. Just in an everyday, we are buying coffee and then someone says, give me your number. And then, or we're much in a construction site. They're calling you out. Those things are irritating, and just, we went through that thing just for a day, for a few hours, and already we're fed up. Imagine what women go through
on a daily basis.
From I mean, think about, what, guys, we rape a three months old little girl, and when you talk about those things, men say, yeah, but what about men? I mean, on 3 years old, 3 months. What? How do you even justify that? Yeah. So I think that is how we should think about this whole thing and just be a bit sensitive. But the most important thing I want to say in closing is that Amadoda must take collective responsibility. That is why I no longer want to entertain in the hashtags about not all men. I'm no longer interested in those things, because the conversation has moved from that. Whether you think that you're a good man or a bad man, you need to take collective responsibility. And say that what is wrong is wrong, and violence must end, whether it's perpetuated by male to male, female to female, or whatever. If violence is wrong.
All right.
Yeah.
But Max?
Yeah. As we close, I just want to say that on the 4th of December, But Javu here, but Sia here, and myself will be joining other men in Moretele district, north of Pretoria,
at
the Hammanskraal, at the Timber Indoor Sports Arena in Hammanskraal, where we will be having this dialogue. All the men who are able to join us there should come as we kickstart the series of dialogues. And then on the 6th, we'll be having another one, where we will take it straight inside Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Center, where we will be engaging with offenders as part of their rehabilitation program, so that by the time they come out of the correctional facility, they already understand that there's a better way of engaging with women.
Big up to that, Bromex. Bro Javas?
Next week, the Commission for Gender Equality will be engaging with most of the women that have run away from their homes and living in shelters because of us men. We did a study. We are meeting the voices behind the stories that are coming at Pactonian Hotel next week to say this society has made us to be this. Some are professionals, they can't go back because society, it is what it is, and it needs us. Sia said, we need to be responsible, we need to play our role as men, we need to remove the silo mentality that it's not me, and we need to remove the mentality that we know them in our WhatsApp group, that violent men, some people, even when you're sitting with them, they just slightest provocation, jokes, they can't take joke. What about in the home? What about, we see them talking to their wives, but we don't teach them the good thing that that you don't talk like that. Even if it means turning your back against your friend by telling them the right thing, let's do it. It's time that we lead South Africa as men in a positive way.
And I think it's time that we should encourage men with good stories as well, but especially men who have made a difference in our communities. We need to come out as those men and tell a story, isn't it, Brasia?
Yeah, no, definitely.
You know why I'm saying that?
Yeah.
You do know why? You do know why I'm saying that.
So
Now you know why I'm saying that, right?
And I think it's very important that we have programs such as that one of.
Maybe let me just bring the listeners up to speed before you even explain.
Hijack.
Yeah, no, it's fine. The hijack, it's okay as long as it's in the studio. You've posted yesterday on was it Facebook?
Yeah.
On Facebook that you've received the 2019 SA Men of the Year Award for Leadership.
Yeah,
there's something encouraging.
Yeah, very much.
Tell us about that.
So the Department of Social Development Men's Forum has come up with this great initiative that recognizes men who are, making positive impact in the communities.
Yeah.
And I think this was the fifth round of awards. And then I was fortunately one of the guys who were honored last night under the leadership category for the work that I do, obviously in the country as well as outside the country, because I do work with Not in My Name. I also work with other organizations such as Together First, which is a coalition of 150 organizations throughout the world. So we deal with global campaigns. I also work with the Obama Foundation as a leader. So yesterday I was, one of the people who were honored there. So it's important because we must not shy away from saying that there are good men in this country, and that is the messaging that needs to go out there. We cannot continue sending out a message of bashing, a message of discouraging. We must say that there are men who are doing great things in our society, and the work that they do must be highlighted so that these young boys, and that's what I liked about last night, these awards were handed over to us by young boys. They would say sweet messages. You are my inspiration. I'm looking up to you. It's a program inside a program, which I think is very important. And I thank you so much to the department for the honor.
Yeah, big ups to that.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. 12 minutes after 7 o'clock, and that's where we're going to have to lay it down for this evening. And one more time, let me just remind the stations and you as a listener, we were meant to be hosting the President Cyril Ramaphosa this evening via Power FM. We've just received advice from the presidency that program has now been canned. It's not going to happen anymore. It's been cancelled, and the president has decided to withdraw from the chairman's conversation. That's the name of the program that's hosted by Gauteng-based radio station Power FM. So the stations were standing by for that to happen at 8 o'clock. Unfortunately, it's been canned. It's not going to happen anymore. So, but we really appreciate your readiness for taking up that program. So let's leave it here for now, and let me just say thank you so much to you, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Bramex, for your input. I really appreciate it, sir.
Thanks. And I'm pleased because I always call Butsia my leader. Yeah. Now that he's got an award for leadership, he's got no reason to object when I call him.
That's excellent. Brachavas, thank you so much to you, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. I wish we can do this more.
We'll definitely do that. We need more than an hour. Brasia, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Big ups to somebody that's been holding the fort. Can you believe it? For today it was a big day, really. It's a different day. I've got an intern operating with us here. The guy that you're seeing on the other side, he's doing a job that's supposed to be done by 3 people. He's doing it alone. His name is Ace. Ace has done an absolutely amazing job this evening. Ace has been mending the sound, and it's sounding absolutely brilliant, amazing. Ace, thank you so much for that. Ace has been on telephones as well. At the same time, he's been picking up the phones, lining up the callers. We really appreciate that, and he's been monitoring the signal as it goes out as well, that we don't have any break in transmission. You've done an absolutely amazing job, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you so from the guys coming from the DOG for putting this show together. I really appreciate you guys as well. It has been a long day for us. One of our own, somebody who's been a veteran of radio, Lennox Truss, today he finally decided to lay his headphones down. Lennox Class has resigned, and we've attempted to call him on the phone, and I've been trying to get a hold of him as well. I believe he's in a flight to the Eastern Cape as we speak, and that's why we can't get him. But it has been a day. I wanted to give him an opportunity to really thank the stations for the partnership that we've been having for years and years and years and years. So Lennox, has resigned from the GCIS, but we'll be hearing from him in the future. We'll get an opportunity to call him so that he can speak to the stations. All right. So from myself, Karabolans, let's leave it here for tonight. See you again next time.